Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trailokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Yatha sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So we are still in the story of Leela, and we're in the section where the goddess has been enlightening our dear Leela, who's also Arundhati, who's married to Padma, who's also Vashishta. And we have two Padmas, an old dead one and a young live one. And we've got a couple Leelas. So what we're finding with all this is breaking down our linear notion of time and space. This happens, which causes this, which causes this, which causes this. Our poet is deliberately messing with our minds. And we get realities tucked within realities. There's this tucked within that. So it's meant to be confusing. Have you found it confusing?
Yes.
That's very successful. And the bottom line is the substratum of it all is consciousness. All that is knowable is sankalpa, just imagination. And again, in the earlier teaching, we're talking about the physical body and the subtle body and reincarnating into other physical bodies. Well, let's set that aside and let me ask you a question. Do you incarnate into a dream? It feels like it. When I'm in the dream, I have a dream body and it feels like I'm inside it. It feels just as much like I'm inside it as it does here in the waking state. And I peep out of that dream body. It is my locus of perception. It's the point from which I look at the dream world. And I have a dream ego identified with that. The world outside, the feelings inside. But am I in the dream or is the dream in me? In Gita, early on, Krishna says, all this is strung on me like Mani Sutre, like gems on a thread. Oh, isn't that cool? Krishna's in every one of these. You. That's a very early part of the teaching. And later on, he says, well, actually, I am not in them. They are in me. Just like you are not in the dream is in you. And a few shlokas later, he says, well, actually, that isn't it either. They are not really in me. So if you dream that you're horseback riding, you don't wake up in the morning with a horse in bed. So we can't say anything that is imagined, that is sankalpa. Can't say it really exists. And Krishna says, behold my divine Maya, the support of it all. And Viveka Chudamani and other texts, Shankara thunders, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. Jagat, the phenomenal world, is Mithya, illusory, meaning the names and forms occur like the names and forms of the dream state. Now, there is something real here. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily Brahman. That's what Chandogya says. Being is here, Bhava. It's the names and forms that are not real. All right, what verse are we on now?
Verse 41, 42, page 38.
Can you help us out, Puneet?
Yeah. Durat duram abhipluptya tato brahmand mandalat nirgatyananya dat prapte mandalam brahmanaspadam tada tasyastu sankalpat tatratyaha dridrish shusipmave. Then, hovering across from distance to distance and going out of orbit of this world, when they reached the other world, which was the abode of the Brahmana, the people there saw them verily by the will of the goddess.
So, remember, they left the world of the young king and they went into outer space. They've gone to different lokas. Loka literally means world or people. Some people translate it as planets. But they go to some place else. And now they're back seeing the abode of the Brahmana. Remember him, Vashishta, and his wife Arundhati? No, wait a minute, I thought they were dead. That was a lifetime or two ago. Oh, but time is something also created by the mind. What is the definition of time in yoga? Who can tell me? Just like when you have a point, you cannot have a line. What does it take to make a line?
A series of points.
At least two. Time is the interval between two vrittis, between two thoughts. That's all it is. And again, if we go to the dream state, you create time in your dream. So let's say you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And you wake up at, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And you've had a dream. So you know you dreamt somewhere in there. From the outside, I think they say a dream lasts somewhere between 1 and 3 minutes totally. You watch the eyes, the rapid eye movement. But inside, all this long story happens. The mind creates time. Even subjectively in the waking state, you go to, say, a concert. In an hour or two, it goes by like that. But if you're like me, you go to the dentist. That's the longest 50 minutes in the world. Mind creates our experience of time. Even sequence here. So Lakshmi and Leela are now back in the hall of the Brahmana Vashishta. Let's see what happens. Next verse.
Namostu vanadevibhyam iktyuktva kusumanjalam tatyaja jyeshta sharmartha sardham grihajanena saha. Salutations to the goddesses of the woods. Having said thus, the eldest Brahmana gave away or offered a handful of flowers along with the people of the house.
Yes, so they're able to see Lakshmi and Leela. Goddesses appeared. So of course, they do prostrations and offer oblations. Well, how would you feel if the goddess showed up at your front door? So let's see what happens next. Going on.
Putram sa murdhin pasparsha tena sarve sucham guhuhu tat va punara yata lila devim apricchata. She touched her son on the head. By that, all gave up their grief. Seeing that, and having come again to the goddess, Leela asked.
Oh yes. So remember, I think we're at the place where Vashishta's dead, and these are the eldest Brahmana was his eldest son. So she touches them, blesses them, and now Leela is going to ask the goddess a question. Going on.
Vritasya burta jivos sao yatra rajyam karoti me tatraham kimna tai drishtasmiha sutena kim. Where the soul of my dead husband rules the kingdom, there, why have I not been seen by them, the inhabitants? Why have I been seen by my son here?
So here she is seen, this is Leela, by the people in the hall of the Brahmanas, but not seen in the hall of the young king. So these astral bodies are visible to one set of people, but not to another. Let's see how the goddess answers this. Going on.
Devya uvacha abhyasena vina vatse tadate dvaiti nishchayah nasta sango to abhavat satya sankalpata bhutnacha. Child, then without practice, the goddess said, child, then without practice, your firm belief in duality did not get extinct, nor was there the mental resolve for knowing the truth.
So basically, the grosser our minds, the more concrete our physical reality seems, and the less we can perceive of the subtle world. Now let's talk about this sort of thing just from a practical sense. Most people out there who have no practice at all, the incrustation of vasana, the incrustation of egoism, keeps us from being very sensitive. As you meditate more and more, and as you let go of attachment and aversion, very interesting thing starts to happen. You become more intuitive. You become more sensitive. For example, have you ever had the experience you're just going around the house and you're thinking of someone, and then the phone rings and it's them? Who's had that kind of an experience? See, we're all connected. Or you're aware that someone is having a crisis and you call them and they say, oh, I'm so glad that you called. You have no idea what has happened. Who's had that kind of an experience? So the intuition starts to develop. Now, this idea of seeing the goddess show up in a form, that's not nearly as important as being able to get guidance in our worldly life. In the Hebrew scriptures, is it Isaiah who talks about the still small voice? I think it is, yes, the prophet Isaiah. So God's not in the thunder on the mountain. God's not in the lightning. God's not in the wind. God is in the still small voice within us. Now, it's not actually a voice. What it means is intuition. Emptier I become, and the more I can let go of my insistence in life. I must have it this way. I won't have it that way. I have a spreadsheet for my life plan, that kind of thing. Go of that. Go of all attachment. When we begin to get a sense of rightness, and in the end, this becomes an unerring guide through life. And if we practice listening to our intuition, we begin to trust it more and more. But we have to let go of the outcome, let go of the karma phala, the fruits of action. Let me give you a very clear example. So 22 years ago, 21 and a half years ago, I applied for a job as the music director at a local Catholic church. Right after I got my master's degree, second job I applied for. So I went for the audition, and when you go for a job interview, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Oh, they were crazy people, I thought. So fearful, lots of power structures. They hadn't had good leadership for a long time. The pay was awful. And this fellow named Silas had picked me up and taken me over there because I wasn't quite sure where the church was. He was driving me home. I said to him, Silas, I'd be a fool to take this job. I hadn't had a music director for a year and a half. And he got very quiet. He said, Jim, will you pray about it? And I said, yes, that I will do. Sat, it wasn't this chair, it was 2 chairs ago, but in the same place. And first thing you have to do is let go of any investment in the outcome. Taking the job, not taking the job. Then you ask the question, okay, God, should I take this job? What's your will? And I call it the signals. Everyone is different, but you learn to get familiar with your sense of rightness. And I had the strong intuition, Jim, you need to take this job. My rational mind was saying, this is a terrible choice. But I trust that intuitive sense. Been doing this a long time. I trust it implicitly. And it turned out to be a wonderful job. I was there for 14 years till I retired. What I did not know was an opportunity to build a whole music program. And very quickly, within 6 months, they were paying me decently. But the point I want to get it wasn't something rational, wasn't using that part of my mind. It's listening to this inner voice. Now we have to silence the loud trumpets. I must have it this way, or I'll never do that. We have to let that become neutral. And then we ask for the guidance. And sometimes, because it's filtered through our minds, we rationalize. We kind of push the answer. But if you practice it, you will learn this discernment. Any thoughts on this? Who's attempted to do this at times in their lives? It's really important. Really important. And in the end, it's such an unerring guidance. So this is the deeper understanding of seeing the goddess or not. Just, oh, there she is, all dressed up in her sari and everything like that. I mean, some people have visions. It means we have this deep sense of guidance. And it is the fruit of a quiet mind, a detached mind. Because then we can come into participation, cooperation with the intelligence that's running the universe. We're not fighting so much. Okay, I'm just going to put that on the shelf for now. So, Goddess says, your minds were too gross, so you couldn't see me. Now your minds are more subtle, you can see me. Going on.
Adhyasi satya sankalpa phalitam te yadipsitam. Today, you have truth as your aim. Therefore, whatever was desired by you has borne fruit.
So, before her desire was, I don't want to miss my husband. I want him to be here, which is a catch-all for all of our worldly desires. Do you see God as your errand boy? Okay, God, your job is to give me this and give me that and give me this. Have your view of God. So once Leela had truth as her goal, what is the nature of ultimate reality? Oh, then all sorts of wonderful things start to happen. What is the dharma of a human being? Who can tell me that?
Realization.
You got it. You got it. God consciousness has two different ways we approach it. What is your essential nature? It is, you know that you are you. But it also means that the mind is moving through time and space. Dharma can also mean that, like a river, towards self-realization. If we ride the horse in the direction it's going, life gets a whole lot easier. If we fight against that, life becomes very much a struggle. All right, next verse.
Lilovacha aho maya smritanyadhya purvajanma shatani me subhrantam hi maya purvam nana vidhasu yonishu. Alas, hundreds of my previous births have been remembered by me today. Indeed, I have wandered much in various kinds of wombs or places of birth earlier.
So now Leela has a memory of hundreds of her previous lifetimes. Now, you do not need to remember all your lives in order to be rooted in the self. The sum total of them all is right here in your own mind in the present. You don't need to know the particulars. Oh, I was a janitor in the pyramids back in 3000 BC. You know. Oh, in 2000, I was a soldier in the Roman army or stuff. You don't need to know the particulars. Some people do get vivid memories of prior lives. Point here is we've gone from environment to environment. Thinking, well, that didn't work. Maybe this will make me happy. Well, that didn't work. Maybe that will make me happy. In the 12-step traditions, we have an idea called a geographic. If someone lives in Chicago and they're an alcoholic and they trash their lives, they get fired from their job, their credit's really terrible, and their friends have deserted them and they can't pay the rent. So they think Chicago's a terrible place. It's a tough city. It'll be better if I move to California. So they moved to Los Angeles. In the beginning, oh, they're a nice person. Same thing happens again. They get fired from their job. Their friends start to think, what the heck are you doing? They get behind on their bills. Oh, everything in LA is too materialistic. It'll be better if I move to San Francisco. They're nicer in there. But you get the idea. We keep going from environment to environment, thinking the problem is externals. I need a different house. I need a different job. I need a different spouse. I need a different career. I need a different body. All these ideas I'll be happy with. It'll be better if, more, better, different. That's the essence of reincarnation. So all we have to do if we're adults is look back in this life. Oh, I remembered I did this thinking this was going to make me so happy. I quit that situation. I went there. That's what was really going to do it. I keep looking for the perfect job. I was talking with a person last night, still looking for the right partner. Everyone he's had so far, it's been wrong somehow. He's got a checklist. It's foolishness. But that's Maya. Any thoughts or questions on this? Let me summarize it. Getting what you want gets you what you want. Getting what you want in and of itself will not make you happy. The more attached I am, the more craving I have, the more expectations I have, the more ego identified I am, the more miserable I am. No matter how many zeros I have in my income. The more detached I am, the more santosha I have, contentment. The more self-abidance I have, the more peace I have. Then do as you will in the world. Sport with it. Never think that the external world is what's going to make you happy. Don't believe me, look to your experience. Next verse.
New section, section 4, Anantara Vrittanta, the following story. Vashishta Uvacha, Evam Akarthan Antaute Prapya Sargam Dvitiyakam Antarpure Dridrishatuhu Rajanam Shavatam Gatam. Vashishta said, oh, sorry, there's one more sentence. Tata Puna Vinirgatya Tadrishatu Bhayanakam. Vashishta said, the two, the goddess and Leela, thus conversing, have arrived at the second world, saw the king, who had become a corpse, in the inner apartments of a palace. Then, going out again, they saw something frightful.
So they're now back at the first hall where King Padma is old and dead. Now something frightful happens. Let's see what it is going on.
Senayo shastra sampatam yuddhe choparate nishi vidura tharkya bhupasya devayao vivishatu griham. They saw a sudden fall of a number of weapons of two armies. When the battle ceased at night, the two ladies, Leela and the goddess, entered the house of the king called Viduratha.
So, meanwhile, they're now on the scene of a battlefield. These two battles are fighting, and then a lot of people die. They go into the tent, headquarters of Viduratha. Let's see what happens going on.
Prabodhya cha tada raja sandarshanba nadvayam utpatya shanatnat bhaktya soparyat kusumanjalam. Then the king, having woken up, saw clearly the two women. Rising from his bed with reverence, he offered a handful of flowers.
So Viduratha sees the celestial women. This is Lakshmi and the spiritual body, the astral body of Leela. Oh my God, having a visitation. Let's see what happens going on.
Rajan smara vivekena purjatim iti swayam vadanti murdhin sparsham tam karena saraswati. King, remember your former birth by discrimination. Thus saying herself, the goddess Saraswati touched him on the head with her hand.
So let's find out who this king is. She goes whack on his head. Let's see what he remembers. And again, we have these like realities within realities within realities. Bringing it back to our personal experience. Have you ever slept in, say, on a Sunday morning, and you've had a dream, and you awaken from that dream, and then you go back to sleep, and there's another dream, and you wake up, back to sleep, and there's another dream, and they're like, how did you get from here to there to there? You know that feeling? This world is not a whole lot different. Going on.
Atha hardam tamo maya ragnyosya shayamaya yao sasmara purva vrittantam antaspurit divasthitam. Then the darkness or illusion in the heart of this king reached its end, that is, it was destroyed. He remembered his earlier history as it were distinctly visible within.
So he remembers his prior lifetimes too. Now, practically speaking, what happens in meditation? I like to say, don't just do something, sit there. And when discomfort happens in the mind and we quit trying to run away from it, and we're totally present to it, much like what you were sharing with me before class tonight. The technical word is called kashaya, which is the vomiting up of the content stored in the unconscious. It doesn't necessarily show up as discrete memories. It will be frequently feelings, anger, fear, loneliness, etc. You might get images, some childhood experience. Might be from another life. But the Hridaya Granthi, the knots of the heart, they're in the unconscious. They come up into our field of awareness. Just don't do something, sit there. With interest, compassion. Become aware of it. And then all the tangled stuff starts to loosen. And there's space. There's freedom. Another layer of stuff comes up. This is the process in meditation. Meditation is not about taking a salve and putting it on top of my ulcerated mind. It's so full of pain. It's more like lancing a boil. It's gross. All this yucky stuff comes out. But in time, what's underneath? Clear, tranquil awareness starts to emerge. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
हे देव्यौ किमिदं नाम दिनमेकं ऋतस्य मे अध्येह समतीतानि वयोवर्षाणि सप्ततिः इति पृष्टे तदा देव्यौ राज्ञा विस्मितचेतसा. Oh, ladies, what indeed is that? What indeed is this that for me, who was dead for a day here, 70 years of age have passed today? The two ladies were thus asked by the king, whose mind was surprised.
So he's remembering different lifetimes, all these different incarnations. So Vidurata is the same dude as Padma, the same dude as Vashishta, has had all these various lifetimes. And again, it's meant to confuse you. Realities with realities and reality. Oh my God, who's where? I can't keep track of it. It's like a Russian novel, for God's sake. It's meant to be that way. It's meant to be almost like you're drugged. Because spiritual ignorance is like a drug. It deludes and confuses us. Next one.
Devya Uvacha Yatha Swapne
Who speaks next? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
the goddess. Devya Uvacha.
Devawacha. Okay.
Yatha Swapne Muhurte tu Samvatsara Shatabhramaha Tava Maya Vila Sena Tathayam Jagrati Brahmaha Vastu Tastu Na Jatosvi Namriteshsi Kadachanaha. The goddess said, just as there is the delusion of the passing of 100 years in a moment during a dream, so is this delusion of yours during the waking state due to the play of the illusory power. However, in fact, you are neither born nor dead at any time.
So here is the crux of it. Just like in the dream, a whole story is created, and it's nothing but imagination. So also is the dream of this waking state and all the other lifetimes we've had or might have. I have one fellow who's a physicist and a mathematician. He says, mathematically, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to remember the future. I absolutely do not understand what he means by that, but I believe him. Used to say. So the point to take from this story, in my ignorance, when the mind is tamasic, deluded, filled with illusion, I see a world of name and form. And I have opinions about it. For God's sake, don't you know I'm right? What the scripture is saying is what you are seeing, all of it is mental projection. It's all just sankalpa. Nothing wrong with it, just don't take it seriously. Problem is when I superimpose a reality onto it. The classic metaphor that we hear in scriptures is like the mirage waters in the desert. I'm driving through the desert and I see a mirage up ahead. But in my ignorance, I think that there's a flood. My perception is water, my understanding is water. Keep driving down the road. You do this, that makes the car go. And the lake keeps receding. And then I go, oh, that's really cool. My senses continue to report water, but my understanding is sand. The fool sees the world of name and form and sees real people, places, things, and conditions and gets all caught up in it. That will make me happy. This will make me miserable. Getting this means I win. Losing that means I'm a loser. The yogi sees the same world of name and form. But sees it all as Leela. Remember our definition of Leela. It means play. And it has the same dual meaning as the word play does in English. It can mean play. Kids go out and they throw the ball around and they play. I'm going to go to Berkeley Repertory Theater and see a play, a dramatic presentation. It means both. So that's what this world is. It's Leela. It's sport. It's just a drama show. It's a hologram. It's a movie. You are never touched by it. Don't believe me. You can remember through the day. Just tune up the mind. Notice the knower. Koham, who am I? What you will find is, to use Yoga Vashishta's term, Chid Akasha, the space of pure consciousness. Going on.
Shuddha Vijnana Swarup, Shuddha Vijnana Rupastvam, Dirgha Swapna Idam Jagat. You are of the form of pure intelligence or consciousness. This world is a long dream.
Yes. Sum it up. Vishuddha Vijnana. Extremely pure, not just Shuddha, but Vishuddha. Extremely pure Vijnana. Consciousness. This is a word that's borrowed from Gaudapada in the Mandukya, when he refers to the self as Vijnana Ganam, a homogeneous mass of pure consciousness. It's never born, never changes, doesn't die. First, we get indirect knowledge from the teacher, from the scriptures. Paroksha Jnana. Now, the white heat of your own meditation, to let go of your attachments, to let go of any personal sense of self. You see whether or not a person with breath in their nostrils, the space of pure consciousness. Next verse.
Raja Uvacha Aham Deha Mimam Tvaktva Purvadeham Labhe Kada. When do I get my earlier body leaving this body?
So
Sorry.
this back
Said.
for Vidurata. Now he wants to know, well, what's going to happen next? Will I go back and get the Padma body? What's going to happen? Let's see what the goddess says.
Devyuvacha Asmin Rane tu Martavyam Tata Prapyasi Purvakam Etasmin Prastute Shrutva Shatruna Piditam Puram Raja Vidurat Ho Devyao Yudhyay Yasya To Mama Rakshya Tamiyayam Bharyati Procha Yudhyaya Niryayao. You should die in this battle, then will you attain to your earlier body. When this was declared, having heard that the city was harassed by the enemy, the king Vidurata said, "Ladies, this wife of mine, who am setting out for battle, may please be protected," and went out for the battle.
So listen to the way she set it up. She says, you go into the battle, get killed, and she doesn't say, then you will be reincarnated into your next life. She says, no, you're going to go back to your prior life. Wait, that's not the way I thought it worked. That's correct. We're breaking down notions of cause and effect. We want to, and we teach this in the early stages of Vedanta. The effect is the cause in a different form. Gold is the cause for ornaments. Mud is the cause for pots. Your good actions are the cause of good results. If you want self-esteem, do esteemable actions. All sorts of ways we talk about cause and effect. But in the dream, there is cause and effect, but is it real? It wasn't last night, it was the night before. I had this really weird dream in the morning. Trying to write a paper. I was back in school, and my friend Mauricio was there. And somehow I had loaned him my laptop. And I had this funny little thing. It kind of looked like those things you see in the movies that the court reporters use. What are those machines called?
Typewriters.
No, it's not a typewriter. It's like a
The stenograph machine.
stenograph machine. Yeah. So Mauricio had gone off to India and took my laptop. So I'm going to have to write my term paper on a stenograph machine. And it wasn't really like a stenograph machine, but it was kind of like one. So cause and effect. Mauricio takes my laptop. I have to write on a stenograph machine. Can you write a term paper on a stenograph machine? No. But in my dream, we could. Cause and effect. My mind creates cause and effect. One of my favorites. Anybody here have flying dreams? Yeah. Freud, you have a holiday with that one. Well, of course, I have flying dreams. But I'm an old teacher at heart. So guess what I do? I teach flying in my dreams. So there's a group of people in front of me and I go, flying is controlled falling. It's all in the breath. Doesn't that just sound like Jim? We all go, we levitate above the trees. Cause and effect in the dream. Was it real? Sure seemed real in the dream. But upon awakening, oh no, that's kind of absurd. Now listen very carefully. For us Westerners, we don't have it happen as much. But in India, there's a long tradition of great saints working miracles. Do their miracles defy the law of physics? Maybe. But they don't defy the laws of metaphysics. Because these great saints understand deeply this whole world is like a dream. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a nightmare. Sometimes you can do a little dream shaping. But for you and me, understand fundamental illusory nature of all form, of all all levels without exception. Any thoughts on this? May not be your experience yet, but be open to the idea. That's all. So let's see what happens to Viduraka. Going on.
लीलां ददर्शान्यां स्वकारा सदृशाकृतिं ततो वीरगणैः साकं गत्वा समरभूतले प्रयुध्यन्तु हतो राजा प्रतिराजेन संयुगे. Then Leela saw another Leela with a body resembling her own form. Then the king, having gone to the battlefield along with a host of warriors and fighting with the hostile king in the war, was killed.
So all of a sudden, Vidurata has a wife who looks exactly like Leela. So when you have a dream, doesn't your dream body look like you? I never fat in my dream. That's the thing that's very interesting. I'm only fat in this dream. And I can always see perfectly well in a dream. Aches and pains at 73-year-old. Very funny. So Leela then sees another Leela, who's Vidurata's wife. He goes charging off to battle and he gets killed. Well, let's see what happens next.
Section 5. Punar Ragamam, the return. Mudam Bhartara Malokya Leelanugama Nechaya Brahmadi Sthanam Akramya Prapachit Gaganantaram. Seeing her stupefied husband, Leela, with the desire of following him, going towards the abode of Brahmana, the creator, and others, reached the interior of the sky of consciousness.
So again, this is the poetic device. She wants to be where her husband is. Going on.
Pattane tatra padmasya Devi Shaktyupabhrimhita Mandape Pushpaguptasya Shavasya Nikate Sthita. There, in the city of Padma, Leela, Viduratha's wife, strengthened by the power of the goddess, stood near the corpse hidden by flowers within a hall.
So Leela, who is Vidurata's wife, goes back to the scene, the original scene where King Padma is lying on the bed of flowers as an old man. I think that's it. I don't think she went to the hall of the young Padma. Read the English one more time for me.
There, in the city of Padma, Leela, Viduratha's wife, strengthened by the power of the goddess, stood near the corpse hidden by flowers within a hall.
Yeah, so she's gone back to Padma 1.0, not Padma 2.0. All right, going on.
Ragnyo Jivakala Leela Devi Cheti Trayam Tatah Sargantaram Gatva Padmarajasya Mandape Shava Parshavasthitam Leela Dadarsha Purvamagatam. Then the life principle of the king, Leela and the goddess, these three having gone from world to world, saw Leela, Viduratha's wife, who had arrived earlier, standing by the side of the corpse in the hall of King Padma.
So we've got one goddess, two Leelas, seeing a third Leela with dead Padma. very confusing. But if you have a heavy meal or maybe have a little bit of wine with it and you sleep, aren't your dreams like these incredible mixes? And this life is no different. One of the things the dream state does is it always seems somewhat logical to the dreamer. If you're driving up a mountain, you never question, how did I get on this mountain? I don't own this car. You never question it. So also is this experience. Going on.
Lilovacha Devi sa praktano deha katham mama na drishyate. Leela said, Goddess, how that earlier body of mine is not seen.
Okay, so Leela 1.0 we don't see. I think she probably just rotted. Let's find out.
Devyuvacha samadhav tvai linayam nirjivam te kalebaram chandanam darubhi dagdham chittav nishipya mantribhi ativahi kadehasi vasanaya parikshayat. The goddess said, when you were absorbed in samadhi, your body became lifeless. Placed in the funeral pyre, it was burnt with sandalwoods by the ministers. You possess now a subtle or spiritual body by the destruction of mental impressions.
Yes. So her physical body died, was burnt to ashes. She didn't notice it. So if you've ever met anybody who's had a near-death experience, something pops out of the body and all of a sudden you're looking down at the body, there they are doing CPR, putting the paddles on it, and all of a sudden so many people, they'll see a tunnel and their relatives or friends will be there and there's a light. What is it that's having those experiences? It is the subtle body. But the part that's so important to remember, if I in the subtle body am seeing the physical body, that's not me. That's not even my individuality. Right now, if you pull your hair, no, it's my hair. But if you go to the barber shop or the beauty salon and they give you a haircut, hair falls on the floor. You're not on the floor going, oh, I'm cut off, I'm cut off, I'm cut off. No. You're like me, you look, my God, has it gotten white? But it's other. Such as death. Going on.
Avam tavadiyam lila pashyat ityeva chintate utthaya sambhrama drishtva tayopadeshu sapatat. At first, let this Leela see us both. When the goddess thought thus, the new Leela, getting up in haste and seeing them, fell at their feet.
So this is Leela, who's the wife of Vidurata, sees Leela 2.0 with the goddess. Going on.
Uthapayamo nripatim shavatalpat imam punaha iti jiva kalam devi nasikayam nyaveshayat. We now raise this king again from the bed of the corpse. Thus saying, the goddess introduced the life principle into the nostrils of the dead body.
So now she's going to revitalize old King Padma. She brings him back. Let's see what happens next.
Kramat angani sarvani sarasani chakar shire uttasthau sa laskatayaya prapacha vismita tada. Gradually, all his limbs shone afresh. He got up with a glittering body and then asked in wonder.
So he not only comes back to life, but he gets a rejuvenation. You know, it's better than Botox when the goddess does it. How many more verses in this chapter, Puneet?
There's about 6 more.
I think we'll have to stop here. We'll finish up this story with these realities within realities within realities. Just to sum up, understand it's purposely confusing. We want to break down our rigid adherence to linear sequence of time, of cause and effect, to understand I am not the body. All these various bodies appear in the space of consciousness. My experience of the dream world to the dreamer is not fundamentally different than my experience of the waking state reality. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thank you.